It's too hard to walk. It's too hard to walk, but 2 months from now, everything's going to be just right. That's a quote from Iron Mike Tyson. He was talking about his training, talking about his forthcoming fight with Jake Paul. So, what do you make of that? Oh, I should finish it because there was something else he said that was interesting. He said, I'm willing to do anything right now to make my body feel better. So, how are we to interpret that? I don't want to be a literalist, by the way, guys, but I'm forced to in these situations, right? I can't take things with a grain of salt. I don't know what the guy meant. I have to take him at his words and then break that down and then give you an interpretation. Okay, great. So, I feel as though I can relate completely with what he's talking about. I mean, I know those nights that where you go to bed and you think, I'm going to have to take tomorrow off. I'm going to have to take the next couple of days off. I know those nights. Where you crawl in bed. I've had to pee in the middle of the night before during training camp. And the mere thought of having to get up and because your body's so sore, just the pain of stabbing. I just understand what he means. And he's also said that in 2 months, everything's going to be just right. And I wish he would have gone further with that. Like, is this part of the training process? Is part of the peaking process? Because, see, I've always wondered, but I know you have too. 2 months, by the way, guys, is not very long. 2 months to do a 2-month training camp, to do a 3-month training camp. That works just fine when you're competing 3 times a year. So now all of a sudden you're closer to 6 to 9 months of actual training. And then in those other 3 to 5 months that just happen to exist on the calendar, you're still doing something. You're still in there. Now training is, my entire life, training was a very coveted word. Jiu-jitsu specifically, but then followed by MMA, has corrupted the word. If you go into practice, if you go and do a workout, if you're doing your exercises, according to jiu-jitsu and now MMA, you are training. Hey, you go to training today? Hey, did you train yesterday? That's called practice. When you're training, you eat, sleep, and breathe the event. And it's a very unique thing, and you do not train 3 times a day nonstop, though you might work out and or exercise. And I only share the difference with you. This fight already got scrapped, right? These two and this event and Jerry's World and Netflix is supposed to be behind us. In fact, if you guys will recall, Mike pulled out, and was it a suspected heart attack or a stroke? Something very serious. I don't say this at all to be funny, but I can't remember. I remember in the airplane and taking off. I remember the wheelchair. I remember the entire thing. I remember the cover-up and all of the stories that came out. Like, I remember this entire thing. Was Mike training after that? Did he have to take a meaningful amount of time? Did this buy Mike 5 more months to prepare for Jake Paul? Or did he have a recovery period and the 10 to 12 weeks he planned to put into the training camp is still the 10 to 12 weeks he put into the training camp? He just moved it to now. It's wildly important for the story. And he looks good. But physically, when you just look at Mike, he looks like, and people keep calling him 58. I don't think he's 58. Is he 58, guys? I feel like that's pushed it just a little bit. I thought he was 53 the night he came back and fought Roy Jones, and that was a meaningful amount of time ago, but I don't think it was 5 years. And I'm just bringing that to you because when you look at Jake Paul, I don't know how Mike would have done with Jake that night. That was the night Jake put down the basketball player. And Mike didn't look terrible. He just looked tired that night. But Mike is a little bit older, so he's not any better. Jake is older, but at the right time of his life where you do get better. And Mike had no more experiences, so he didn't get any better. He had no more training, so he didn't get any better. Jake had lots of experiences and lots of training, so Jake got meaningfully better. So if you're questioning at all who would have won that night, if you're even on the fence of, I don't know who, maybe it would have been Jake. If you're even on the fence, then it is without question that you should be betting on Jake to win this one. And I haven't heard of a backup fighter, by the way. They're going back to Jerry's World, which is a colossal undertaking that is colossally unnecessary. And this was their opportunity to get out. Like when this fight got canceled, this was their opportunity to rebook it. Tell the world, hey, we got to play the venue game like everybody else and put it in an 8,000 seat venue like it should have been put in the very first place. All right, save that thought. That's on them, right? Boxing only exists because you always find a bigger fool willing to lose money. Boxing on all levels is only here today because you can continually find somebody willing to lose money. So that's on them. But I will share with you, when you're losing money, you'd like to lose as little as possible. And I haven't heard of a backup fighter. I think it's necessary. I think it's very necessary. And I also think they're in a very interesting position with that. And generally a backup fighter would come in to save the day, and you're just using math. Just mathematically, we are unlikely to lose both people in this fight. In fact, over history, I don't think there's been a time when we have lost both guys in a fight. I believe you lose one, so if you have one backup guy, off you go. Now, that math doesn't totally work because Mike Tyson versus anybody doesn't work. It's got to be Mike versus Jake. Now, Jake versus the right opponent does work in many different ways. So you end up in a bit of a tough situation. And we exhausted the options of viable free agents when we brought in Mike Perry and had him take on Jake Paul. That was absolutely the right guy, Mike Perry. And that was absolutely the only guy at that time. I don't know if there's anybody else that you can package up and bring forward. The co-main event in no boxing card ever has been featured, right? Not to a point where, okay, you're going to step in, you're going to be the main event, and business goes on. They cancel the whole event. And that's not just Chael's opinion. This just happened, and they canceled the whole event. So, it's an interesting spot. Mike says he can hardly walk. We have pictures of Mike being taken off an airplane and put into a wheelchair, which was lied about. They lied and covered it, and then they found out that TMZ had 5 more photos and a video that they were going to drop. And all of a sudden, the PR team that was a mouthful of liars in the beginning began to lie a little bit closer to the truth. Okay. Heart attack and or stroke, but something very serious. Took Mike Tyson out of the fight. It took him off of an airplane. When he got off the airplane, he couldn't walk on his own, evident of the fact that he was placed in a wheelchair. He is now stating publicly that he cannot walk. And nowhere within this story is a statement, a response, or even a thought by the overseeing commission to reconsider this fight. I think we are down to the right 3 guys.